Happy Friday, everybody. This is Craig and Richard with our final week's feedback video. And once again, beautiful conversations happening online. Jen and Sherelle doing a great job, as usual. And lots of gratitude this week, Craig. Lots of people really sort of expressing appreciation for the course.
Yeah, I think if we find something that's really helpful or useful, we do feel a natural gratitude. And I think, we felt that as well when we sort of discovered mindfulness. And I think when you do that, you want to pass on things that you found helpful yourself. And so it makes it all worth it for ourselves and all the fantastic team we've got behind the camera and behind the scenes doing the work. So thank you for all of your thank yous.
Yes. And of course, lots of different experiences people had over the duration of the course, and a few people raising concerns around, well, did I have the right experience, or
Yes, yeah. It's and also it's some learners were noting that it's hard to talk about the experience to people who are maybe unfamiliar with mindfulness. Very often people have stereotypical notions of it or dismiss it without actually understanding it, without having read something about it, and so sometimes it's unless somebody's really sincerely interested, it's good not to try and convince anybody or hard sell to anybody, and just let people come at it at their own time. But people do have a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness, and so that just
navel gazing or zoning out.
And so we shouldn't be disheartened by that, but just not talk about it unless somebody's really interested to learn about it.
And to take a leaf out of Gandhi's book, perhaps just be the change. Maybe just practice rather than try to get other people practicing. And in time, certainly other people start to notice that you're a little different, and they maybe become interested in what's happening for you.
Yeah. And going slow.
Well, look, it's something that comes up a lot in courses, sort of people sort of wondering, do I have to do everything slowly and mechanically? And certainly not. Mindfulness doesn't have to be done slowly. It just has to be done mindfully, with awareness. And in the beginning, it does help to slow things down, particularly if we're, in a habit of doing something on automatic pilot without paying much attention. It can be very useful to just slow it down a little bit.
Yes.
But, I'm not sure if it was in the video last week or afterwards, we were talking about Ayrton Senna and, how he described race car driving as a mindfulness practice, and, skydiving, that's a pretty mindful activity, not many sort of thoughts of the past and the future when we're falling from space, right?
Yeah.
So mindfulness doesn't have to be done slowly. We just have to really tune in and pay attention.
Yeah, and just find the pace that's appropriate for that moment in that activity. And mind you, if we are walking through the park, and rather than our sort of internal driven sense of I've got to get where I need to go, so if we are just walking through mindfully, or if we are savouring something that we're eating or tasting, we often will do that more slowly. It allows the savouring. So, but not to have a one-dimensional view of mindfulness as it has to be slow, because our peak moments are actually often in the midst of this sort of rapidly changing events and so on, and to be focused in that is mindful too.
Yeah, and in the beginning, there are a lot of exercises, and it's sort of an approach that people take and cultivate, but certainly in courses I run, and I'm sure you've noticed the same thing, it becomes very alive. People start to notice that when they're in the present moment, far from being mechanical or boring, the moment's very much alive, and they start to really live.
Yes. A lot of learners were experimenting with practicing mindfulness in different settings, including very busy and perhaps noisy settings. I think this is one of the things I really encourage, that people don't feel like, in order to be mindful, I've got to be closeted off in a sort of a very quiet space.
In a cave somewhere.
And because we want to be as portable with it as possible, to take it anywhere that we need to go. So if you're an athlete and you're standing on the starting blocks of, a final in the Olympics, like many Olympic athletes have done, you want to be able to be mindful there. You want to be able to be mindful not just while it's quiet, but while there's a jackhammer going next door, and to be less reactive and distracted by that.
In an open plan office. I think one of the best tests of mindfulness when people practice is how calm can you stay in peak hour traffic?
The ultimate test. So we really do want to be, I think it's fantastic to experiment with it in lots of different environments.
Yeah. Something else that came up, which was really interesting, is some comments by some very long-term meditators. People meditating 30 years, in one case 50 years of meditation practice, and really finding that they got a lot from the course, which was really surprising and great to hear. People just finding that. I think when we make mindfulness practical and sort of relevant and teach people how to embed it into their lives rather than just having it as a meditation practice that they do, that really gives it life.
Yeah.
Also, just some of the teaching that we included around neuroplasticity, some of that information really helped a few people to understand, I guess, the purpose of the practice or what was happening for them, to sort of really give it some meat.
Yes. It's been noted as well throughout the course that a lot of learners have become much more aware of default mode and distraction. It's not the criticism that the stuff's going on, but the fact that we're aware of it means that we can just sort of gently unhook from it, and we don't have to keep, fanning all that default thinking and worrying that we tend to do. So that's most certainly a sign of progress. In
the beginning, noticing that the mind's wandered can seem like a failure, actually, to some people. But over time, it becomes apparent that that's a mindful moment.
Yes.
It's a moment of waking up. Oh, my mind's wandered. I'm no longer present. Well, that's a moment of no longer being in default mode.
Yes.
Yeah. Course-related distractions. This is something that comes up a lot, isn't it? People getting distracted by elements of the course, or a lot of people say they're halfway through watching a video and then they're sort of distracted by something else on YouTube.
Or sitting down meditating, thinking, what am I going to write in the comment section, in the next discussion?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, all of it's sort of grist for the mill, really. The entire course, every part of it, is an opportunity to practice mindfulness, just to become aware of those kinds of distractions. And, of course, because it's delivered via technology, digital technology, of course, a lot of people can start to sort of just discover
yes,
the effects of that on their lives.
It happens in groups as well when people sort of, there's a group discussing mindfulness and somebody will note that, the number of times that as somebody's talking, they're realising they're actually rehearsing what they're going to say next and throw into the discussion. And this is all an excellent part of being more mindful and noticing that.
Yeah.
Pets can distract, but sometimes can enhance the process. The cats, I've known that they are an absolute magnet for meditation, and there's one of Lunig's cartoons, The Good Uses of a Tired Husband. One of them was as a cushion for the cat, and that's my very favourite meditation posture as well. So
Lunig's an Australian cartoonist, for anyone that doesn't know who that is.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So. But I think one of the things about animals and also young children is there's so much in the present moment that they can help to bring adults into the present moment much more, and just the natural playfulness and spontaneity is a sign of just being present. Now, mind you, there's a kind of maturity that comes with adulthood about being able to sustain attention and to be able to choose what to give attention to in a more discerning way that a child doesn't have, but that natural
engagement with the present,
is natural to children and indeed adults.
Yeah. Some learners saying that they become a bit drowsy after or during longer meditation sessions. I think that's pretty common, actually. It's one of the common hindrances. People sometimes in meditation literature talk about agitation and drowsiness as being two common experiences that can kind of get in the way. And I think the important thing is just to notice it and to work with it, really. It's not a problem, it's not a fail, it's just something that happens. And so certainly, if you're falling asleep meditating, you might want to sit up a little bit straighter, maybe move away from the backrest of the chair or get out of the easy chair or half open the eyes, that kind of thing. Just making sure that you work with it so that we cultivate an attitude of or a quality of alertness. Yeah.
And it does often unmask a background level of tiredness.
Yeah.
And sometimes a power nap's a pretty good thing to have before meditation and just to freshen up and then come back to meditation. It's come up to about changing others and so on, and we can't necessarily change others, although often our example, if we're more mindful, a steadying presence in a difficult situation without trying to impose change on others can often help others to connect as well. It helps others to perhaps be less reactive in a given situation. So So, which is always an interesting thing to notice.
Related to that earlier point about maybe not talking about mindfulness practice so much, but just doing it. And also some of the things that came up last week and the week before around the power of really listening when we're communicating. I mean, we can just embody it, can't we? Certainly any time parents ask me, how do I make my child be more mindful? Like, the first thing I say to them is, well, be more mindful yourself. You know, if you go home after work and you ask your kid, how was your day? And you really listen to the answer, of course, that's modelling something for them that's very different to sort of half listening, being on the phone and not really paying attention.
Yeah. The relationship between sympathy and empathy, and when we're distressed ourselves, that's come up as a bit of a topic. Yeah,
that's come up a few times, hasn't it? Certainly, people start to notice the effect of perhaps over engagement with stories and sympathy, and how that can actually create a lot of distress for them, and a sense of stress, and how compassion and empathy really they have a different quality to them, don't they?
I think to be able to be at peace with the moment, open to the moment, even if there's discomfort, to be able to be at rest in the presence of that helps to move from that into compassion rather than reactivity, which is when we're distressed by our own, but others' distress as well.
I think a nice distinction to make is between reacting to something and responding to something. And when we're really present and noticing what's actually happening in the moment and responding on the merits of that, that's a response. And of course, when we're just caught up in judgments and stories and ideas, that tends to be a reaction. And I think that's a useful way of making sense of the two.
Yeah. There's been some interesting political events, obviously, in recent times, and the Brexit and so on was coming up. And it's interesting, for the last couple of years, there's been an all-parliamentary movement in the UK to bring more mindfulness into the UK Parliament.
You're heading over there, actually, to work with them, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I'm going to be speaking to a group at the House of Commons soon as well. And if you can keep your head while those about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, the first couple of lines of Rudyard Kipling's If, but, in times of crisis and agitation, it really needs a few people to be centred, to have a clear head, to understand the distress and anxiety of others, people getting way ahead of themselves and catastrophising. So to be able to step by step through something and to keep a cool head is very important in such a crisis sort of situation. So hopefully there'll be enough parliamentarians in the UK to do that. It'd be lovely to see a little bit more mindfulness in the Australian Parliament. I don't think we're there yet.
Be a good thing to see, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So just in wrapping up, I mean, I guess a lot of people's thoughts and the conversation at this point in the course starts to turn to what next, how people might continue their practice on afterwards. And certainly, this is really, 6 weeks is a very short time. We've really just planted a seed, I think, for a lot of people, and hopefully given the learners a range of different meditation exercises and a way of thinking about mindfulness that helps them to really start to, or continue to explore that day-to-day, moment-to-moment in their lives.
Yeah. That's been tremendous. So this is not the end. It's another step, hopefully, in your mindfulness journey. And by all means, if you'd like to do the course again, it'll be starting again in September.
Yeah, September 19, I think. Yeah, we've found a few learners over time who have done the course more than once, just maybe dipped in and reviewed things and certainly shared that. And we've got a recommended resources section as well. So for anybody who's interested in just reading more or finding out more about what's out there, that'd be a good place to look. Yeah. So once again, we'd just like to thank all of the learners for their really great contribution over the duration of the course. Jen and Sherelle, of course, for doing such an awesome job moderating and really leading that discussion. And of course, the Future Learn team and all the team here at Monash. It's been once again really great and a privilege to work on this course.